Welcome back to Inside Look, an Inside Ambition segment where we take a deep dive into something important happening here at Drexel. I'm Alexandra George. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to make sure that you are subscribed to our brand new YouTube channel and you're following our Instagram. Oh, and while you're at it, why don't you just go ahead and like this video, because we all know you're going to. I'm just too charming. I know that you probably don't think of me as much more than a two-dimensional figure who rants way too much and never leaves her bedroom, but I'm also a Drexel student just like you watching this right now. Unless, of course, you're my dad. In that case, hi Dad, I'll call you back soon, I promise. And as Drexel students, it's not uncommon for us to fall victim time and time again to the jokes cracked by friends from other universities about our hefty tuition. But come on, Mario's abs, they come at a price. The high price tag of Drexel grants us a fabulous geographic location, not to mention a revered institution and a pioneer in the co-op respect. But some might argue, all might argue, that with online classes, the college experience just isn't the same. Plus, the price of tuition has become burdensome in the current climate. Many college students and their parents or guardians lost jobs due to COVID-19. The pandemic has caused ripples of financial hardships all across the country and the world, and our Drexel community is no different. Drexel's Undergraduate Student Government Association, USGA, or the USGA that doesn't know how to play golf, they're pioneers themselves and they are here to save the day. USGA has proposed a continued tuition freeze with further tuition reduction and the implementation of a student stimulus fund. Uh-oh, lots of big words. You know what that means. Now let's take an inside look. Who USGA is or what they do, but they work to bridge the gap between the student body and the administration. They serve as advocates for us as students and provide a direct line of communication to administrators like Kim Golston, Sabir Sahu, and Katie Zamolinsky. Don't know who any of those people are? Scroll down to the bottom of your emails, people. USGA has made great strides over the past 5 years alone. They got brand new furniture for the library that we can't use now, but whatever, it's fine. They also helped to plan the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society project with seating and an outdoor stage that was supposed to be built in front of UCross. Oh, but that got postponed because of, the global pandemic. Oh, but you might have seen last week on Thunder Index that they got the university to develop an Office of Sustainability, which you probably don't care about, but I promise is really cool. And now they are tackling the biggest challenge Drexel has ever seen. No, not trying to get the men's basketball team to the NCAA playoffs, be realistic here, but everybody's favorite cool aunt, COVID-19. According to the proposal, the unemployment rates for college-age individuals have tripled from 18.4% to 24.4% between the springs of 2019 and 2020 due to COVID-19. Young people were disproportionately affected by COVID-related unemployment due to the typical entry-level positions that they take up, just like co-op. The Steinbright Career Development Center reported a 7% decline in employment for the fall-winter co-op cycle from this year to last, and in the spring-summer, there was a whopping 16% drop. And for those students lucky enough to have been employed on co-op this past year, many of them faced hourly and salary reductions. All of this goes to say that many students at this point are barely covering the cost of housing and food. Plus, as we covered last week on our show, the majority of resident assistants who rely on the university for housing and income were laid off for months. According to the proposal, Drexel undergraduate students work roughly 50 hours a week on academics alone. I think we can all agree That barely leaves us enough time to take on a part-time job, let alone watch the first season of Bridgerton, a romantic period drama with a diverse and captivating cast available now on Netflix. Hashtag not an ad, but it could be. Call me. In his message, Hanlon mentioned that Drexel boasted a campaign that raised over $600 million this past spring. Couldn't the same efforts be put forth in order to raise money for the basic needs of students? And as I'm sure you are all well aware, so sorry to remind you, but college students did not receive stimulus checks from the CARES Act, as we are listed as dependents when our parents and guardians file for taxes. Drexel, on the other hand, who doesn't have a daddy to depend on, besides Mario, who is like literally the only reason people come to this school, they got over $6.5 million from the CARES Act to, quote, assist students with expenses related to disruptions of their educations due to the COVID-19 outbreak, such as unanticipated travel, additional technology requirements, or other needs related to an emergency situation. Even though that sounds vague and all-encompassing, several students were denied when asked for COVID relief through the CARES Act. If you or someone you know was denied money through the CARES Act, let us know down below. Many students were denied when they asked for support in reference to housing and other living expenses. And since when does the university get to decide what actually is and isn't an emergency? If I need money to support my online shopping addiction and therefore my mental health, I would consider that to be pretty emergent. In response, USGA has proposed a long-term solution instead of a temporary one. A proposal like this can set precedent for future responses so the university is being proactive instead of reactive. Just in case there's another global pandemic. Hanlon said this program should not mirror the existing Student Emergency Fund, which provides a short-term solution to an often long-term issue. This new fund should instead be designed to assist students on a one-time basis or longer as needed. Flexibility fatigue and overall financial strain due to COVID has negatively affected retention rates here at Drexel, as many students can't rely on future endeavors to support them in a time of current financial hardship. Looking inward to our own community only signifies a need for COVID relief that other universities have already addressed or are in the process of addressing. Due to the effects of the pandemic, Temple announced back in May that it was going to freeze undergraduate and graduate tuition for the entire 2020 to 2021 academic year. According to a statement released in July by Temple officials, the tuition freeze would save students a combined $15 million while keeping the university financially stable. Additionally, Temple still plans to give out over $100 million in financial aid this academic year. It is important to note that while Drexel and Temple exist in close proximity, they are two very different institutions, private and public respectively. The University of Pennsylvania, however, is a private institution just like Drexel. Penn officials announced in early August that there would be a tuition freeze at the previous year's rate for both the fall and spring semesters. According to the Student Registration and Financial Services Department of the university, there is a delayed billing timeline and a Penn payment plan that needs to be applied by students. While this may sound well and good coming from Philly's Ivy League university, it seems like many students are less than satisfied. Surprise, surprise. The Daily Pennsylvanian, Penn's school newspaper, published an article in August titled, "Not Even the Bare Minimum. Penn's students demand more than just a tuition freeze." The triangle could never. It seems like the resounding sound emitting from the entirety of University City is, "Help, we need COVID relief." And also, "Can you please reopen the Starbucks at 34th and Lancaster? We need caffeine." If you want to express your need for COVID relief, make sure that you've signed USGA's petition, linked down below in the description. You can also share your story in our comment section down below. And as always, to stay up to date with all of our content, make sure to follow our Instagram at inside_ambition and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Hi, I'm Lizzy Friedman. This is Inside Ambition, and you're on 34th in Art, where we talk all things arts and entertainment in and around Drexel University. This week, we're talking dance and community. We all dance, whether you like to admit it or not. We all get our bodies up and moving and shake what our mamas gave us. It's so cathartic. I know personally the best way for me to get into a good mood is to just bust a few moves in front of a mirror, and boom, instant smile. As the killers say, are we human or are we dancer? Well, I say it's both. We're all also part of community, in one way or another. For example, I'm a part of the Drexel community, the West Philly community, and the care way too much about my coffee beverages community, just to name a few. Each community is important and makes up our society, and that's why community-driven programs exist, to connect and strengthen its members and to create more empathetic and overall better groups of citizens. And in a city like Philadelphia, where you could walk through a very low income neighborhood and then in just a few blocks see luxury penthouse apartments, it's important to connect people and spread opportunities that everyone deserves. And art is an amazing way to connect community. And like I said before, we can all dance to some degree, even if you can't catch a rhythm for your life and you're up there dancing like Drake in the Hotline Bling video. I know that's an old reference, but that's as hip as I am. When a group of people come together and to dance and learn something new, they can connect and relate to each other on a real level. As part of its mission to become one of the world's most civically engaged universities, Drexel offers many community-driven programs that connect the students of the city to its everyday residents. We all have to take Civic 101 as first-year students, so if there's anyone who knows about community engagement, it's a dragon. And that's exactly why I have our next guest with us today. As an advocate for accessibility in dance, I'm delighted to be able to talk to Drexel Associate Teaching Professor in Dance and co-founder of Girls Steaming Through Dance, Valerie Eiffel. Hi, Val. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Lizzy, for the invitation.
Of course. So to start, can you tell us a little bit about your journey with activism in dance and how you've kind of worked it into your career?
Yeah. Like anything else, I feel like real passion comes from, lived experience. And I think part of my activism comes from being a woman of color, kind of navigating my way through certain spaces, a lot of predominantly white spaces, as well as a lot of creative spaces, and just noticing where there are gaps, and noticing, communities that I would have loved as a young person or as an adult, communities that I would love to be a part of. And if you don't see it out there, then you just need to create it, right? And so I think that has really been the impetus for my work and activism in dance. And really, dance should be accessible to all people. We all have bodies that move, to varying degrees. And yeah, and we should all be able to have that as a form of expression. And I think that also, as a young person, I didn't often see myself reflected in even my teachers, right? So what my dance teachers, my school teachers, and it, like you were saying, it makes such a difference when you can see yourself represented, whether it's like on the screen, on the stage, in learning environments.
Yeah, definitely. And so you run a group with other Drexel faculty that gives young Black women the space to connect dance with science and technology. So how does Black Girls Steaming Through Dance work?
So we are in our fourth year, and it's a collaboration across four different colleges at Drexel University. So the Westphal College of Media Arts and Design, the College of Computing and Informatics, as well as the School of Education. And so there are four different faculty members. So I'm the representative in dance. Raja Shar is the representative from product design in the Westphal College. And Dr. Ayana Allen Handy is the representative from the School of Education. And then Dr. Michelle Rogers is from Computing and Informatics. So the four of us came together together because really we wanted to work together. And one of the things that we had in common is we are kind of few or only, in our respective areas. And we all have this common passion for, like, what if we mixed it up a little bit? What if we changed the game a little bit by, exposing young girls to all of these different areas so they can see what they like and, can really explore. And the idea is when they get older, maybe they'll join one of these fields. So we sort of combine dance and design, product design, and we do that primarily through wearable technology. And then we code that technology and we lean on virtual reality and augmented reality. And we create something at the end, some kind of performance. And since we went online, we've been doing some, working in the virtual space in new ways. But we like to have a final performance for families. And yeah, so that's a little bit about the different, kind of elements that we put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great because there's such a disconnect, I feel like, sometimes between like STEM and then the arts. And it's like, I love seeing the combination where you make STEAM, and it's like, you got that A in there, you got the arts.
We got the A, Lizzy. Yes.
Yes, you always need the A.
And there's so much creativity, like the girls work with us from the beginning of a project to the end, right? So they learn about dance making and choreography. And then we have our units where they're designing and, those are like the messier days, which I love. There's like stuff everywhere and tape stuck to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, they're making that we create a making space for them. And then so they design the costumes that they wear to connect with the choreography they've created. And then with the, wearable technology, they'll make it like light up and then they code it, right, to connect with the music in certain ways. But they really get to think about creating a piece of art, right? They create a work of art and they get to see it through from the beginning to end, and they're involved in the process each step of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds really lovely. And how old are these girls exactly?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. So they're all living in West Philadelphia, and they range from age 7 to 13.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a really cool age, and it's been nice to sort of follow them and like hear stories about how this connects with their schoolwork, or how they were able to like bring it into their schoolwork. But this age, they're so creative,
right?
So that's really exciting.
Yeah, and that's such like like that age range is like, you're changing so much, you're growing so much, you're really like learning who you are. So it's really important for, I think, these girls to have this kind of place where they can experience all these different things and figure out like what they really love to do. I think that's really great to see, and I think that definitely those girls benefit a lot from that. And I mean, this kind of jumps a little bit off of that, but so much positivity comes from programs like these. What do you personally love to see like come out of it and working with this?
Okay, all right. So let's think about this. I mean, so much. I feel like there's just something about being in a space, and even like being in a space where you're the majority, you like look around and you see other, Black girl, like this, like, Black girl magic, like Black girls, Black women, because we're not a monolith, right? Like we are all very different with our different interests. And so it's rare to be able to see that, especially in academic spaces. And so that's something that, I love about being a part of this community. But something that I want to see come out of this is, just to circle back to, what I'd mentioned before, I think it's just more women of color in these fields, contributing from our unique perspectives and enhancing, enriching these, multiple different fields because of the access and the exposure. And so I think that that's the end goal, to see more diversity in dominant spaces.
A little bit more to that, what keeps you motivated when like work like this might seem challenging? Times like these with like the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's really important happening. People are getting really fed up, and it seems like things just aren't, like we're hitting walls, it seems like sometimes, which is really hard to see. What keeps you moving?
Well, isn't that real? Thank you for asking that. I feel like that's so real. And it's the girls, period. You know what I mean? Like it's these girls who are so deserving of the world and more, right? And who are so smart and are so creative and like, you know, they are our legacy, right? Like they are the future, you know what I mean? And so let's keep on pouring into them even when we're exhausted. I think that's real. And something that we also do is, we don't ignore like the noise and all of the things that are happening, and so after, George Floyd's murder, we didn't continue with the programming. We canceled for that week, and we said, you know what, let's take a pause, and we need to have a moment to grieve because this is a lot, and so I think that we're constantly just trying to tune into the humanity of the work and then keep our mind on, the goal, which is these girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With this being kind of like a college-based program, why do you feel that colleges are the best kinds of spaces for these community-driven programs? And I know you've also worked with the University of Akron and other like university-driven programs. Why do you feel that like these are kind of the best places to get these programs going?
I mean, I think for so many reasons. I think one of the big reasons is the university students. I've been doing a lot of work in like community-based learning work. Part of that was at the Dornsife Center. There's a dance program called Dance at the Dornsife Center, which I just feel so grateful to have had the opportunity to start back in 2014. But I asked the parents, part of like the survey process or whatever, was like, what's most valuable about this? And hands down, everybody's like the connection with the college students, like the girls interacting with the college students. And then the college Drexel students who were the teachers would oftentimes just show up to teach like an hour early and just sit with the kids and do homework or like talk with the families. So there's like a community, like just a really rich community, bringing in people from like multiple perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's unique to, a university environment, especially one that has such a robust connection to community-based learning is, I think so often we exist within our own silos and our own communities, and we don't get to experience other people's perspectives. But because, of our connection to Drexel, we really have the opportunity to kind of reach outside of our own bubbles and connect with people who may have had a different experience.
So if Drexel students were to want to get involved in the program, how exactly would they go about that?
Yeah, so they could reach out to us. And I would say, you could check us out. We have a website called blackgirlsteaming.com. And, feel free to take a look at, the kind of thing that we do. And if you're interested, I would reach out to one of the faculty members. You could certainly reach out to me. And yeah, and just say, hey, I'd love to get involved. How can I get involved? But we do have some positions available, or if you want to check out a performance, I think that there are varying levels that you can get involved.
Yeah, that's great. That's so good to know. And that'll, of course, be shared with all of our viewers here. All in the comments and the descriptions. It'll be on our Instagram. It'll be everywhere. We'll get the word out. Yeah, of course. And yeah, I think being in a community like Philadelphia, and especially West Philly, where there's such a wide range of socioeconomic standings. You see everything. I think it's great that Drexel offers so many programs like this that work to bridge those gaps together. And I think it's great that like us college students can get that experience and like see all these different facets of our world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so before we wrap up, That was my last question for you. I want to thank you for the important work that you do and for sharing it here on the show. I really look forward to seeing what else Black girls steaming through dance and all other community dance programs will achieve in the near future.
Oh, thank you so much, Lizzy. And I'll be sure to loop you in and let you know whenever we have something going on.
Awesome. And that will always be shared right here at Inside Ambition and 34th and Arts Avenue. So thanks again, Val. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Bye.
Bye.
It's clear the magnitude community-driven programs have in our world, especially dance-related ones like BGSTD. If you're into movement or technology or community-driven programs in general, you should definitely reach out to Val or anyone else mentioned in the video. We'll be sure to include more information in the description box below. And there are countless other opportunities through the Dornsife Center and Lindy Center right here on campus to get involved in our community, as well as numerous organizations throughout Philly. So get out there and get engaged with your community any way you can. Safely, of course. And if you're including art and creativity in that, all the better. Thank you for joining me here on 34th and Art, and be sure to follow Inside Ambition on Instagram and YouTube for all the latest. I'll see you right here next week at the same address. In the meantime, keep on moving and shaking. Bye.
Hey Dragons, it's Paige here with your weekly Thunder Index, where we discuss all things science, storms, stars, and sustainability. As always, to start off, you can expect some precipitation in the upcoming few days and some snow possibly heading into next week. The highest for the week will reach about 43 degrees and the lowest for the week will reach about 22 degrees. What better way to be back on campus than with some snow showers in the city? Moving up in the sky and into the stars, let's recap on the last week of astrology and what it means for you. The sun has been aligned in the Earth sign of Capricorn from December 21st, 2020 up until yesterday, January 19th, 2021. We have recently been motivated by feelings of responsibility and ambition. Capricorns derive much satisfaction through completion and accomplishment. They want tangible results. They want to know what is feasible and what is not. They are most comfortable working in an established framework with known limits and known boundaries. Working towards a long-term goal can be most satisfying with this influence. If you watched our last episode, we discussed the great conjunction of 2020 and how important it is right now to envision your future and go after your goals. With the sun leaving Capricorn, remember to take those structured and ambitious plans and keep them in mind. The sun is now entering the air sign of Aquarius during the age of Aquarius. This is such a powerful time to let your creativity flow, to trust your intuition, and to be uniquely and unapologetically yourself. My advice for this time is to practice self-affirmations. Grab a piece of paper, write down what you are, and who you wish to see yourself to be. I am creative, I am unique, I am organized, I am successful, and I am happy are a few examples of things that you should remind yourself that you are. Read these affirmations out loud to yourself right when you wake up in the morning, as well as right before you go to bed at night. You will be shocked at the impact that just saying these affirmations out loud can actually have on your life. And remember, you are all of those qualities. Heading back down to earth and over to campus, it seems that Drexel has a solid plan to ensure that people are getting tested before returning back to campus. All students now living on campus are required to get tested weekly and are encouraged to follow a quiet period of up to 24 hours until they get their test results back. Each student has been assigned a day of the week to get tested, which they will follow for the remainder of the winter term. Testing is also required for students who are attending face-to-face classes, whether they live on campus or not. It should be noted, though, that only asymptomatic students can be tested at Drexel facilities. And if you have tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 90 days, you are unable to be tested at Drexel facilities as well. We Dragons seem to be doing pretty well, though. Since October, Drexel has performed 9,148 tests, with only 1.99% of them coming back positive. That comes around to be about approximately 182 people. Last week's numbers were a bit higher, with 41 people testing positive out of 1,713 tests given. But that still only leaves us at about 2.4% of people testing positive. If you feel sick, be sure to stay home or stay at your dorm. And you can immediately contact Student Health Services at this number, 215-220-4700. All appointments for testing can conveniently be made on the Drexel Health Tracker app. And any questions you have about Drexel's return to campus, you can visit drexel.edu/coronavirus or contact COVID tracing at drexel.edu. Once again, Drexel has requested vaccines and has offered to fully staff the immunization clinics. But the city so far has still declined, citing the need to remain focused on the Phase 1A group, as well as the small amount of vaccine coming in for distribution in our city at this time. We also have inquired about the definition of teacher as it applies to vaccine eligibility, and whether or not it would include our faculty. We are still waiting to hear back from health authorities concerning this issue. The university will still continue to work with the city and state in efforts to secure the vaccine. The current distribution of vaccine has given rise to state as well as county level variability as to who can access this immunization. This, in turn, can result in apparent inequities. During this time, Drexel will continue to support evidence-based distribution of available vaccines, while also strongly advocating for its students, faculty, and professional staff. As of now, Drexel's immediate focus is ensuring the vaccine for our healthcare students as well as faculty who train and work on the front line. Continue to check Drexel's response to coronavirus website and follow health officials' advice on safeguarding yourself and others. And that's all the science, storms, stars, and sustainability that I have for you this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and head over to our Instagram for more information on Inside Ambition. It's always thundering in Philadelphia. Thanks for tuning in this week, Dragons, and I'll see you next week.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the DAC Recap, the show where we recap all things Drexel and Philadelphia sports. I am your host, Luciano Duffy. Now, let's jump right into it. Today will be the part 2 of the 2020 Drexel Sports Recap. Starting off with golf, the Dragons only had 2 events this year before their season was canceled to COVID-19. The Dragons placed 7th in the UNCG Martin Downs Collegiate in Palm Springs, Florida, where junior Connor Schmidt was the top finisher for Drexel, holding the 11th place at tournament's end. In the Pinehurst Intercollegiate, Drexel finished 5th as both Connor Schmidt and current junior Angelo Gianpalacios finished in 10th place. Next, the men's lacrosse team only played 6 games before the start of their pandemic, going a solid 3-3, which was good enough for 5th in the conference. Senior Reed Bauer led the team in scoring, and senior Matthew Varin led the team with 19 assists. Sophomore Ross Bethlehem was the lead goalkeeper as the Dragons registered 66 saves on the year. One of their wins came against 14th-ranked Villanova on March 8th, where the Dragons escaped with a 15-12 victory. Senior Reed Bowning had a standout game, knocking in 6 goals for the Dragons. On the women's side of lacrosse, the Dragons only played 7 games before the start of the pandemic, going 5-5, which landed them 3rd in their conference. Junior Carison Harris was on an absolute tear before the season was cut short. She had 2 5-goal games and led the team with 25 goals, 33 points, and 46 shots. Junior Zoe Bennett was the starting goalie with 55 saves on the season. In the world of wrestling, the guys finished the season with a record of 7-11. 2 key wins in 2020 came on homecoming and senior night. The team was able to beat Birmingham and UPenn to secure those victories. In the EIWA championship, Drexel was able to tie Harvard with 47.5 points. More impressive than this 12th place finish was the Dragons were slated to send 3 wrestlers to the NCAA championship before it was canceled. Sophomore Antonio Miniano, redshirt freshman Michael O'Malley, and redshirt sophomore Brian McLaughlin all were able to secure automatic bids to the big dance. This young core is hungry to get back on the mat and into the NCAA tournament this year. The men's swimming team was red hot to start the 2019-2020 season. They secured 3 straight wins and didn't record a single loss or tie on the season. These wins came when they got 3rd overall in the CAA, 3rd in the Patriot Invitational, and 2nd overall in the Thomas Murphy Invitational. Like many other sports, their season was eventually cut short, so here's to hoping that they get back in the water soon. For the girls, they were able to play in 4 competitions and secured a 3-win, 1 tie, and 0 loss overall in their 4 meets. They ended 4th in the CAA, and their championship was also canceled like the men's due to COVID-19. Let's hope they get back in the water just as fast as the men do. Unfortunately, there were some sports that were unable to play at all in the calendar year 2020. The men and women's rowing team, the men and women's soccer team, and the field hockey team all did not compete in the 2020 calendar year. The NCAA has extended eligibility for a lot of these athletes as they are able to play an extra year at their university. Let's hope that we see some of our seniors back in blue and gold, but if not, we wish them luck on all their future endeavors outside of West Philadelphia. And that's all for the DAC Recap this week. Tune in next week for another recap.
Hi, welcome back to Drexel Update on Inside Ambition. My name is Eva, and before we get started, I want to remind you all to like, comment, and subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel down below. Now, today I have a very special guest with us, Dr. Yuri Gagotsi, a professor here at Drexel University and the winner of the 2021 American Chemical Society Award in the Chemistry of Materials. He is also the founding director of the A.J. Drexel Nanomaterials Institute and teaches here at the university. Thank you so much for coming today, Dr. Gagotsi.
It's my great pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So just to get started, could you introduce yourself a little bit personally and about what you teach here at the university, and then we'll start talking about your research.
I'm a professor of material science and engineering. So naturally, I teach materials-related courses. I teach materials laboratory experimental techniques to undergraduate students. I teach a graduate course on carbon nanomaterials. Plus, I also teach many PhD students, master's students, postdoctoral students. So basically providing graduate and postgraduate education, preparing students to careers in academia, research laboratories of companies and national labs. So basically teaching goes beyond the classroom.
That's awesome. And just to jump into your research, for those of you that don't know, Dr. Gagotsi's main point of research is a material called maxenes. So for our viewers who don't have a scientific background, could you explain what maxenes are and why they're so cool?
Those are actually structures you see in the background. Those are very, very thin layers of material, atomically thin. Some of you may be familiar with graphene. Monoatomic layers of carbon, like carbon atoms aligned in a plane. And here we have 3, 5, 7 layers of atoms where carbon or nitrogen atoms are combined with metal atoms, like titanium, for example, or moly. And they make a variety of materials because now we have a variety of elements. We can combine them in different proportions, build different structures, and basically create something like a Lego blocks for future technologies when we can take different materials, assemble them together, and make something exciting with the properties we need. So, and what is exciting, vaccines were discovered at Drexel about a decade ago in our lab in collaboration with Professor Michel Barzoum, my colleague in the Department of Material Science Engineering, and our student at that time, Michael Naguib, who is currently a professor at Tulane University. So this is a Drexel product.
Wow, that's so amazing and something we dragons can be proud of, definitely. So if you were wanted to make something out of these vaccines, how do you physically create them? How are they produced?
Well, they are produced in a chemical laboratory, in chemical reactors. What we do, we take materials which are known as max phases. Those are layered ceramics. Imagine like a clay, where there are layers, but they're strongly glued together. And actually, Professor Barzoum is the father of that field. So this is another Drexel University product. And we take this material, like a ceramic powder, imagine. We drop it in a chemical reactor in a solution, or it can be metal salt, emulsion salt. And we remove atom by atom entire atomic planes. It's difficult to imagine. You like taking one atom after another out of the structure, and they fall apart in these very thin sheets of material with very unusual properties, which may be very useful for technology.
Wow, that's amazing. So how quickly does this process happen, and what's the cost of creating a material like this?
Well, nothing happens quickly. It may take from hours to actually days to do this etching because solution, ions from solution need to like get into very, very thin, like considered to be a tunnel, which is very long, and get atom by atom out. However, you put it in the reactor, you close the reactor, and the process goes on. So fundamentally, in large-scale production, many of these materials should not be expensive. For example, let's take the first discovered vaccine, which is a titanium carbide, titanium 3C2. So it has 3 layers of titanium bonded by 2 layers of carbon atoms. Titanium and carbon are among the most common elements on the Earth. Carbon is everywhere. We built of carbon for many years. My research was focusing on carbon materials, and we still work on those materials. Titanium is also one of the most common metals. For example, titanium dioxide, which can be used as raw material for synthesis of vaccine, is used to paint the walls. You eat it on donuts with powdered sugar. So it's again, very, very common material. So when produced in large quantities, this material is expected to be inexpensive. And this allows it used in many technologies. We make currently in the lab maybe like up to 50 grams of material in one batch. And whenever you make something small amounts, it's expensive. Say, take a Coke can. It costs a couple of cents. Now imagine making it out of piece of aluminum at home. It will actually cost a lot. Just machinery to make it will probably cost millions to build here. Yeah. So this is actually how every material makes it to the world. Initially, it comes in small quantities, something very expensive. Say aluminum in the 19th century was more expensive than gold. And now it is the most common metal. So as long as we make materials out of Earth's abundant elements, there is always a way to make them useful, inexpensive, and widely used.
That's awesome. So you mentioned some of the amazing potential of this material. What are you most excited about that this material can do or is doing right now?
Well, we're excited about certain things that it can already do. For example, it can provide the best electromagnetic interference shielding for electronics, cell phones, videos, whatever else. It can completely like block electromagnetic waves. And when we have many, many electronic devices now around us, computers, cell phones, wearable sensors, all of them need shielding, protection from electromagnetic noise around. MagSeals have already shown to be the absolutely best material. We can even like a dip a piece of fabric into a solution of MagSeal particles, it coats the fabric, and you, for example, have a pocket where you can put a cell phone and no one will be able to bother you. You take it out, it works. It can also make antennas for 5G communication.
Awesome.
It can be used in energy storage, battery supercapacitor, because it's even more conductive than graphene-based materials used in batteries and other applications. So those are few applications we are already excited about, but we're even more excited about future applications. Many other very interesting properties have been predicted, which we are still to check experimentally. For example, like a two-dimensional magnetism, making material for future spintronic devices. So we have not made it yet, but predictions theory tells it should be possible. And again, those exciting predictions keep us busy. So we need to develop new MagSeals, we need to study their properties.
Wow, that's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And if students want to learn more about MagSeals or the Nanomaterials Institute, where should they go?
Well, they should go to our website, Drexel Nanomaterials Institute website. They can find a nice video introducing the topic on our webpage. And of course, we always have students at all levels, starting from freshmen to PhD students in our lab. It's never too early to start work in the lab. And also, in addition to myself and my group, several other research groups in material science department, several other professors, Professor Steve May, our department head, Professor Michelle Barzum, whose name I already mentioned a couple of times, Professor Ekaterina Pomerantseva, others also explore MagSeal. There are faculty in other departments, electrical engineering, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, physics, who are also involved in research on those materials. We collaborate with professors in our medical school. So almost independent in your area research, College of Media, Art and Design, Professor Genevieve Dion's Functional Fabric Centers. So MagSeals are being explored by many departments at Drexel. So if you're interested, there are opportunities for you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for joining us, Dragons. That's all I have for you today. We thank Dr. Gagotsi for being our honored guest. And like I said in the beginning, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our brand new channel down below. And if you want to stay the most up to date to our information, make sure you follow us on Instagram at inside_ambition. Bye, Dragons. See you next week.
Bye.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside Ambition's main report, the Philly and Drexel News Rewind so that you don't get left behind. I'm Gabrielle Remo. Now, do not forget to subscribe to our new YouTube channel and to follow us on Instagram at inside_ambition. Alright, shameless plug out of the way, check. Before we shift into maximum overdrive with the weekly news recaps, we gotta process the news of last year. 2020 was definitely a crazy one, with some high highs and some significantly low lows. In case you were stuck inside for the past year, as you should have been, let me catch you up on some of the biggest events of this year. Now in January, some crazy things happened that kicked off 2020. We almost got into a serious military problem when the US government approved the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. This prompted reasonable concern that the country might lead ourselves into World War III, not even a full month into the year. Thankfully, the conflict quickly de-escalated. And speaking of the US government, January also saw the beginning of the impeachment of the 45th United States President, Donald J. Trump, making him the third president to ever been so. Aside from this, the world experienced the loss of Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna, and a tragic helicopter crash that claimed their lives along with 7 other passengers. The February newsstands were intense. Harvey Weinstein was convicted and sentenced for his heinous crimes. The world witnessed the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, as well as the first U.S. death from COVID-19. We also saw the loss of rapper Pop Smoke. February did see some positives, such as the 54th Super Bowl, in which the Kansas City Chiefs defeated the San Francisco 49ers, and the 92nd Academy Awards saw Parasite win Best Picture, the first foreign film to ever do so. As for March, we saw the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, with the stock market beginning the largest crash since the Great Depression. Schools, businesses, and many major industries began shutting down, and Drexel University students were sent home on March 14th. Now, for April, it was the best month out of the whole year because it was my birthday, Aries season. That's all the news I have to report for Miss April. Just kidding. I have crippling birthday anxiety. April was the month where lots of politics was underway. In the beginning of the month, Bernie Sanders dropped out of the 2020 presidential race, leaving former Vice President under the Obama administration, Joe Biden, as the sole Democratic runner. May was a long month of the year that was greeted, unfortunately, with more tragedy. Hurricane season began in the United States, starting with Tropical Storm Arthur. Multiple fires across the country destroyed much needed housing. And George Floyd, an African-American man, was unjustly killed in a case of police brutality after Officer Derek Chauvin kneeled on his neck until Floyd died, with his desperate plea, "I can't breathe," a cry used in protests that erupted across the country. Also in this month, Twitter began implementing fact-checking software into its system, and said software flagged a tweet from President Trump as misleading. This led to Trump threatening to shut down social media for an anti-conservative bias. Trump's Twitter was later influenced again when the company deleted a tweet of his glorifying violence against protesters after Derek Chauvin was charged with murder. Trump also declared the far-left activist group Antifa to be domestic terrorists. Our own community had an eventful month of May. Drexel University found itself in hot water with the students after the armory was occupied by National Guardsmen. They were being deployed to quell riots in Philadelphia following the protests, and this led to an uproar among the Drexel community due to the hostility of law enforcement responding to riots across the country. And even with all eyes not only on the police, but Drexel University, campus officers managed to find their way into a scene mile past Drexel grounds and into a traumatizing event for West Philadelphia residents. As we saw images of Drexel and UPenn police on 52nd Street in full riot gear firing rubber bullets and young children being medically treated for exposure to tear gas, we came to the question, what exactly are these officers made to protect university students from? And look no further, because on an episode of Inside Look, Alex dove into the answers to this exact question. Why were they responding to calls from the city's police department entirely? You'll just have to click-clack to that. But because of this incident, a lawsuit came forth on behalf of Philadelphia residents subjected to police brutality, and that, my friends, was mostly May. In June, The country tried to heal in the wake of the violent tragedy of May. Blackout Tuesday, a social media campaign against racism and police brutality, was observed. Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser designated part of 16th Street to be Black Lives Matter Plaza, a sentiment that sparked major controversy within the Republican Party. Seattle, Washington protests created an autonomous zone in the city's Capitol Hill. The Minneapolis City Council unanimously voted to disband and replace the MPD, but was prevented in accordance with the city charter. And after a national debate over Confederate monuments, the United States Army renamed 10 military bases that were formerly named after Confederate leaders. Back here in Philly, the city's police department was being sued by more than 140 protesters for unlawful and excessive use of tear gas. In the same month, the city council approved a ban on the use of tear gas. And unfortunately, the month of May saw another case of police brutality, where Rashard Brooks was killed by police in the parking lot of a fast food restaurant. The building was then burned down by protesters. And in some global news, the United States found proof that Russia was putting bounties on US soldiers in Afghanistan and paying the Taliban for executing them, and that President Trump was ignoring the briefings. But now, for some good news. The Supreme Court ruled that the Civil Rights Act not only prevents discrimination because of sex, but also because of sexual orientation, considering the fact that Philadelphia was one of a mere 5 cities to explicitly ban such discrimination based on not only sexual orientation, but gender identity in the workplace. This was a major decision that moved many into celebration, and rightfully so, during Pride Month. July news was beyond explanation. In addition to celebrating our country's 244th birthday, happy B-Day, America, we saw the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell, the extremely late announcement of Kanye West's bid for presidency, and the Supreme Court demanding that Trump must release all of his financial records. As well as this, the Moderna vaccine began its final phase of testing. But sad news broke that Nay Rivera passed away due to a tragic boating accident. The world also lost civil rights titan John Lewis and media personality Regis Philbin. And back in early July, ICE announced that all international students were required to be taking at least one in-person class, or they were going to be deported. This caused an outcry, especially among the Drexel student population, of which a decent percentage consists of international students. This was later, however, rescinded by the Trump administration, much to the glee of students everywhere. Power to the people, am I right? Friends, we're more than halfway through the downhill spiral of a year. August. The Dragon Demo 2 spacecraft, the first U.S. manned crew splashdown since 1975, landed in the Gulf of Mexico, launching us into a new era of space. That news is out of this world. We should organize a space celebration party. I just gotta plan it. Please laugh. This is a cry for help. President Biden announced his pick of Kamala Harris as the vice presidential nominee, and the DNC was held in Milwaukee, followed by the RNC in Charlotte. Jeff Bezos officially became the first person in history to have a net worth of over $200 billion, a totally fair amount of wealth for one person to have. Unfortunately, August had yet another shooting, with Jacob Blake being killed in Kenosha, Wisconsin by the police. And this launched many more protests over police brutality, including a riot where a white teen named Kyle Rittenhouse shot 4 people before being arrested. This month also saw the tragic loss of Black Panther actor Chadwick Boseman, who died at age 43 from colon cancer. This news shocked the entire world, as Boseman was not very public about his battle with cancer. September and the world experienced the loss of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Her passing prompted the rushed confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, a process that was side-eyed by almost everyone ever. How do we confirm a justice in 7 days and struggle with an impeachment for like 2 years? This month also saw the first presidential debate, which spawned many memes and internet jokes concerning the playground arguing and incoherent ramblings of the two opponents. If I had $1 for every time one of those guys interrupted each other, I would have enough funding to run an even more disastrous and more expensive presidential campaign. Another major September event was Philadelphia tackling the homeless crisis, finally gaining a spotlight by the media. After 6 months of practicing direct action, the city of Philadelphia reached a landmark tentative agreement to give 50 properties to the community land trust created by residents of the homeless encampments. These cities can be found on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway and the corner of Ridge Avenue and Jefferson Street. The Philadelphia Housing Action is the foundation of support towards Philadelphia's unhoused community, stated to fully implement a program to make properties available to nonprofits and the CDC. To this day, both camps are accepting donations of any kind to make their next move as efficient as possible. In October, we saw U.S. national debt surpass $27 million, as well as the first vice presidential debate. While both of those things were terrible, one was an absolute train wreck that could have easily been prevented with careful planning and diligence on the part of our government, and the other was an increase in the national debt. Fittingly, the scariest month of the entire year, the FBI stopped a plot to kidnap and kill Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer over COVID-19 protocols. Democrats in the House of Representatives invoked the 25th Amendment to evaluate the health of the sitting president. And right here in Philly, the community experienced tragic loss at the hands of the police. Again. Walter Wallace Jr. was shot and killed during a mental health emergency by the Philadelphia Police Department, which incited more violence and protests. We also saw a Stanford report directly link over 30,000 cases and 700 deaths from COVID-19 to President Trump's campaign rallies. In October, we lost rock legend Eddie Van Halen, as well as rapper MF Doom. November was a month of light and darkness. On November 3rd, the presidential election took place, with Trump trying prematurely to cut off voting to try and take a win, citing widespread voter fraud. On November 27th, Joe Biden officially won the 2020 presidential election, and this prompted President Trump's campaign to file multiple suits over concerns of voter fraud. The U.S. also unfortunately officially exited the Paris Climate Agreement. In November, we mourned the loss of Jeopardy host Alex Trebek. And finally, December. This month was mostly filled with news concerning the coronavirus pandemic, which is covered in our last video. However, some major events, such as Kyle Rittenhouse standing trial for the homicide charges, the beginning of a federal decriminalization of recreational cannabis, and President Trump pardoning many of his political allies. The Moderna and Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines were approved by the CDC and FDA and were distributed to hospitals across the country. 2020 felt like a fever dream. It felt like one disaster after another, on top of a global pandemic. But great things happened this year. Parts of the world came together to grieve with one another, strengthening our unity through tragedy. 2020 saw innovation and breakthroughs, and somehow we made it here, defying a lot of odds. How did we do it? It was undeniably a difficult year. And there's no way to sugarcoat that. Nonetheless, I really hope things start to look better for 2021, especially with COVID vaccines rolling out and school back in season. Here's to hoping that the world becomes a better place really soon. Good luck, everyone, and see you next time on Inside Ambition's main report.